Welcome back. After serving and suffering for our country, Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw returned home with the heartfelt conviction that he still has much more to give. This spring, he emerged victorious from a crowded field of talented Republican rivals as the conservative choice to replace retiring Congressman Ted Poe. Now he's squaring off against Democrat Todd Litton in what promises to be a very clear-cut political confrontation. Dan Crenshaw, welcome back to the hot seat.
Thanks, Greg. It's great to be here.
All right, you've defended this country. You know what war looks and feels like. Friday, 12 Russian military officers charged with attempting to alter the outcome of an American election. Was this cyber espionage or an act of warfare? And how should the president respond?
It's certainly a national security threat. Calling it an act of war might be a bridge too far. That has implications that might cause us to overreact. But it's certainly a national security threat, and it's absolutely something we can't ignore. I think there's bipartisan feeling for that. The president has to be forceful with how he answers on this. He's got a meeting this week in Helsinki with President Putin. This needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed in Trump fashion, you know, where we actually see him confronting Putin about this. This and many other issues. There's a whole plethora of issues on the table with respect to Russia. They're not our friend. They're not necessarily an enemy, as the president says, but certainly not our friend. They're certainly a competitor and possibly an adversary. They do not have America's interest in mind when they act. They deserve some retribution for this, whether that's us increasing our own cyber defense capabilities, talking about what we have on the table as far as offensive capabilities. But of course, those discussions need to be had, and there needs to be some reckoning here with President Putin. Okay,
Dan Crenshaw, border security and immigration, both big issues in this race, in this district. Do you support the president's zero tolerance policy, including the separation of family members caught entering our country illegally?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, this terminology of zero tolerance has become conflated with family separation. Absolutely don't support family separation. Never have. I've always said I have not. The unfortunate reality is that zero tolerance simply means enforcing the law. And the other reality is that the family separation policy is part of that law. It stems from a 1997 court ruling which required immigration officials to actually separate families. That's unfortunate. It needs to be fixed immediately with legislation. The president has fixed this, but it has to be fixed permanently with legislation. We absolutely don't want to see families separated at the border, but we also have to enforce our laws. This kind of makes the case for border security even stronger because it goes to show, something we've always known all along, when you have hundreds of thousands of people already on our side of the border, it creates a situation that is completely unmanageable. It doesn't matter how many immigration judges you put down there. It doesn't matter how many perfect laws we craft. You can't deal with hundreds of thousands of people crossing the border. We need border security as part of this solution. So you have to have humane laws, but that respect our nation and respect our country's ideals of law and order.
So if elected, you go to Congress, you're going to be working for comprehensive immigration reform to try to fix the system?
Absolutely, absolutely. And Republicans are trying to do that. All right, now we're getting hit from all sides as we do it, but listen, you need border security, you need comprehensive immigration reform that I think prioritizes legal immigration, and we need legal immigrants in Texas. There's no denying that. I do not want to lower quotas for legal immigrants, but we have to stop illegal immigration. That's physical disincentives and economic disincentives, you know, whether that's mandatory E-Verify or moving to a more merit-based system.
Dan Crenshaw, the president has recently weaponized, so to speak, American trade policy, launched billions of dollars of tariffs on friend and foe alike. Do you support Mr. Trump's strategy, even if it has a negative impact short term on Texas trade?
Well, free trade is good for Texas. So any end goal I have in mind needs to be free trade oriented. So tariffs are not necessarily the best way to go about some of these. Now, if you're talking about China in particular, that might be a different story. I'm going to have a little bit more sympathy for a hard line on China. I'd rather see a little bit more targeted sanctions on certain state-owned industries within China that are acting poorly on the global trade war. But when it comes to our allies in Europe and Canada, I'm much less supportive of tariffs. And the reality is it hurts us here in Texas. But I think we all need to come together with our allies and look towards China and hold them accountable.
So when the president uses national security as a justification for tariffs on Mexico and Canada, you don't think that's valid?
No, I'm not supportive of that. No, I'm not.
All right. President Trump has nominated Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. What do you think of the choice? Is it your hope also that he'll revisit, or the court will revisit, controversial issues like Roe v. Wade and potentially even gay marriage?
Well, listen, it's a great choice. And it's a great choice, and I'm speaking to my friends across the aisle when I say this. Choosing a judge for the Supreme Court is not about choosing a judge who will pursue liberal or conservative policy agendas. That's not what judges are there to do. They are there to interpret the law according to the Constitution. When the Republicans choose judges, that is the criteria in which we choose them. So whatever choice comes up, whatever ruling is made, it should be in accordance with that. We choose judges to rule from the Constitution, not make legislation from the bench. So it's a great choice.
Do you think that it's improper of Democrats to suggest and try to fight this choice by raising the issue of Roe v. Wade and gay marriage and the prospect that this court, moving to the right, will try to readdress them and potentially overturn them?
No, that's not a good reason to oppose a judge, because a judge doesn't go up there. Let's pretend that they actually overturned Roe v. Wade right now. What would happen? It wouldn't make abortion illegal. It would simply put it back to the voters. You know, I think that's what Democrats maybe don't fully understand, is that this is not about making law from the Supreme Court. It is about interpreting law according to the Constitution. So it doesn't matter whether you're pro-life or pro-choice. Overturning a decision simply means it goes back to the voters, and law is made according to where law is supposed to be made, which is the legislatures.
All right, Dan Crenshaw, we'll be following the District 2 race very closely. Thanks for joining me in the hot seat.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Great to be here.
Okay, when we come back, more cash in the coffers of the Lone Star State. With billions more tax dollars to spend, how should Texas lawmakers invest your money? Our team offers suggestions when we return.